Hi, everyone, and welcome to Fundraising 101, Raising Money for the Causes You Care About, a webinar hosted by the Do Good Institute. I'm Sarah Gallagher, the Chief Program Officer at the Do Good Institute. I have been with the university for a few years now, and one of the main jobs I have at the Institute is working with our donors and partners and raising funds. Before this, I had experience at an impact investing firm where I also worked with folks to channel their assets for good. And I've also worked at a number of smaller organizations doing fundraising. My specialty is kind of crowdfunding. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Megan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Masterson, and I'm the Program and Communication Coordinator for the Do Good Institute. So I work on programming and working with students here, and then also communications, everything from writing web stories, telling stories, social media, and all of that. Before that, I worked for a nonprofit in DC, Kids in Need of Defense, and I was on their development team. So I did all sorts of different fundraising. My specialty is peer-to-peer fundraising and individual fundraising, and really rallying people to rally those around them. So I'm excited to chat more with you today and really break down fundraising and make it accessible. And with that, so as you may be aware, there are many, many different ways to give, and nonprofits across the country and across the world use a number of different ways to raise funds. So you may have heard of grant writing, where they write proposals and there's requests for proposals, and foundations will give out large sums of money in different forms. There's also corporate sponsorships, where different corporations or businesses can sponsor you. People can sell goods or have any sort of product that they're selling in order to raise money. But today, the main fundraising tactic that we're going to focus on is individual fundraising. Not only because it is exciting for me and Sarah, but also 72% of all donations are made by individuals. So, and a lot of the fundraising and the bulk of philanthropic giving comes from individuals. Nearly 3 out of every 4 young adults are willing to raise money on behalf of an organization that matters to them, and individual fundraising is a main way in which they can do this. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is mostly individual fundraising.
And we're going to focus on the basics of individual fundraising. There are entire graduate courses on how to raise funds from individuals. We actually offer one at the School of Public Policy. So today, in this short webinar, we're going to really just focus on the basics. And you'll see that a lot of what we're talking about is really focused around relationships and relationship building. Because donors are first and foremost people, relationships matter. Your relationship with them matters, and the way you conduct that relationship before, during, and after a gift is really important. We're going to go through 15 principles of fundraising, which are basically tips to help you succeed when you're getting started. This is adapted from Nancy Neal's Principles of Fundraising. She has 14, and we've added a 15th one just for fun. So let's jump right into the principles. The first one is that people want to give. I think this is really important to say up front. Most people want to help others. Most people are looking for good causes to support, whether that's with their time, their talent, or dollars. I think you should assume that the people you're reaching out to for support are inclined to give if given the right opportunity and if asked in the right way. People give to people. So you may have experience with telling stories of beneficiaries or people who are recipients of the benefit of the funds that you're raising. Matching a face to the need, telling a story about the individual really helps donors connect to a cause. It takes something that may be unknown or ambiguous and gives them an example of how their money will be put to work. But the most effective appeal, beyond sort of sharing the story of someone who's affected by the nonprofit or the cause that you're supporting, is one that's personal to you. When you're starting out, you'll be asking your personal and professional networks to support you and to support your fundraising efforts. You can and you should sell them on the merits of the cause, but they're also giving because of their relationship to you. So make sure you know why it's important to you, why you're raising money for this cause, and communicate that with your donors. It'll make them much more inclined to give to you and to support the cause. The third one is a really important one. Ask. You may be surprised to hear that the number one reason why people don't give is because they aren't asked to give. I can't tell you how many sort of failing Facebook fundraising campaigns I've seen where people just put up a general message into the social ether saying, I'm raising funds for whatever cause, it's my birthday, please make a donation. While you've technically put a question mark at the end of the last statement, you haven't actually asked anyone to give. People respond best to individual requests, and they respond best when you are making them feel special and asking them to support your cause. This is a good reminder to ask. It's a good reminder even for experienced fundraisers. So I was reminded of this earlier this month. We were raising funds for an annual day of giving, and there was a person on my prospect list who I work with in a number of capacities, and I'd recently been exchanging emails with them about a lot of other projects that we're focusing on. And when it came time for me to send her the email about supporting our cause on Giving Day, I felt kind of hesitant because I had already been emailing her about all these other things. I was like, should I ask her? She's already helping us in these different ways. And my colleague just kind of gave me a nudge and said, why not? It's not going to hurt. Just ask. I did ask her, and she ended up giving us $1,000 on that day. It was a totally unexpected amount, and it was the largest gift we got from an alumna that day. So it was a reminder to me to ask. Don't be shy about it. If you have some hesitation, as long as it's not, a really serious hesitation, just ask. There's no harm. The worst that could happen is someone says no, and you accept that. Okay, the next one is about asking for a specific amount, and it relates to how you're setting your goals for fundraising. So, believe it or not, some people don't give because they're not sure what's an appropriate amount to give. They might say to themselves, let me think about this. I want to support the cause, but I don't know exactly how much to give. I'll come back to it later. And guess what? A lot of them forget to come back, or they never decide how much they want to give, and they don't give. It seems like a silly reason to miss a gift. So it's important to help people decide how much to give. Essentially, every barrier you remove for a prospective donor gets you closer to securing a gift. In terms of your fundraising goals, it's also important to justify why you're asking for a certain amount. You should be laying out goals for the overarching fundraising campaign, like knowing how much you need to raise to make the impact that you're seeking to make. For example, at the Do Good Institute, we know that about $1,000 can support a student team with coaching and a mini grant to help them jumpstart their efforts. So knowing before you start raising funds what your ultimate goal is and what it's going to achieve is important. You should share that with donors, and they're going to ask. They're going to want to know how you're going to spend the funds. When you communicate these goals to donors, you foster trust, and you demonstrate that you have a plan of how to use their resources well. I wanted to give an example from a student team from a few years back. So Students Helping Honduras won the Do Good Challenge a number of years ago. One of the things they had really done nicely was do some creative fundraising campaigns, and one of them was grilled cheese. They set up a grilled cheese station outside the bars on Route 1, just around closing time, and found a steady stream of customers who were hungry for grilled cheese, but also to know why they were out there and why they had bricks on their table. So their ask was simple. With $2, you get a grilled cheese, and you buy a brick that will help us build a school for students who don't have schools in Honduras. They knew how many bricks they needed, setting up their goals, and they knew the ideal price point for their customers. $2 was easy to do, and it would definitely pay for the cost of a brick for the school. They ended up raising thousands of dollars in a weekend. That was really impressive, and not only a nice identification of a target audience and the right price point, but the right message, and really attracting those donors to the gift as well as a perk, which we may talk about a little bit later. The last point I want to make before I hand it over to Megan is asking for the right amount for the right person. So we already talked about providing a specific suggested donation for people to help them understand what's appropriate and what they might give. But it's really important to treat each person individually. Because this is about relationships, you should treat each donor and their prospective donation individually, because people like to be treated the way they like to be treated, the platinum rule, right? So for example, I'm not gonna text my grandmother and ask her to give to my cause. She won't be able to respond that way, and she'll probably be a little bit annoyed. What I am gonna do is think about, based on her financial situation that I think I have a sense of, how close we are, how strong our relationship is, and what I know about how she gives to other organizations, or maybe how frequently she gives to other organizations. I'm going to take a guess of how much she can give, and I'm going to call her on the phone and ask her for that gift. For my grandmother, the phone call is the best avenue to make the ask. Similarly, I would never ask a student to give more than $10 to a cause, but I will ask my adult friends who have well-paying jobs to give me $100 or more. That's not even a question. It may seem presumptuous to suggest an amount, but if the amount you choose is backed by the information and sort of evidence that you're gathering about the person and about how strong your relationship is with them, it'll help you secure gifts. So Meg is going to talk about making it easy for someone to give a gift.
Thanks, Sarah. So as she talked about, rolling off of that last point with her grandmother, it's really important to make it easy for someone to make the gift. The easier it is to give, the more likely people are going to donate. That's your first barrier, is just getting them to the platform or to you in order to donate. Donating online, as well as one-click donating, and even donating through Venmo, has skyrocketed in popularity in the last decade. Why? Because it's easy. If your donors are on Facebook, meet them on Facebook. If your donors are on Instagram, meet them on Instagram. Or, like Sarah's grandmother, if the best way is to reach her by phone, then reach out on the phone. The goal is that you want to meet your donors where they are. One of my favorite examples that was described to me in this kind of meeting donors where they are and making it easy is the example that it's a lot like flying, and it's a lot like going to airports, which is kind of funny to think about, but some people like flying and some people absolutely hate it. But whether you're a nervous flyer or you fly all the time, you probably prefer a direct flight. It's just easier to deal with one boarding pass, one flight, one destination, get on, get off. A direct flight will make the entire traveling process easier, and it's why people are willing to pay extra for it. That same concept applies to customer service as a whole, and in that same note, it relates to donor stewardship. So the easier you make it to buy or donate, the entire donating process, making it easier, the more likely it is for you to convert people into donors. So for airlines, it might take the form of offering early check-in or expediting the boarding process, but nonprofits and organizations and even student groups can also offer donors a quote-unquote direct flight by making the giving process as simple and streamlined as possible. So when you're thinking about making it easy for someone to give a gift, think about those direct flights. So the next point is that it's really, really important for you to focus on your mission, as that's what's going to attract donors. People really crave purpose, and they're most interested in why your cause matters. So they do care about what's going on, but people can get bogged down in specific jargon or industry-specific jargon, and they really just want to hear stories. Storytelling is so important. So your organization's mission should be at the core of all your fundraising and communications. People care about stories, they care about impact, and they care about contributing to something that does good. Again, they don't really need to hear all the specific details or about what others are doing or about the competition. They want to know about your organization because it's the most compelling. And so, Sarah, if you move to the next slide, I love to talk about Terpthon, and you can see this at dance marathons across the country at different universities. Penn State is a huge one. University of Delaware has a large dance-thon, and why have these been so popular is because students really, really hone into the mission. So using Terpthon as an example, they focus entirely on the children that they support and tell the stories of those who they impact. The mission is at the core of all they do. It is in all of their messaging. It's in the name of their donation levels, the way they organize the event. I don't know if any of you heard FTK, but for the kids is the slogan that has echoed and is used across campuses and across Terpthon. And I think it's really important that they recognize exactly who they're impacting, telling the stories of kids, and using that throughout how they organize their mission and their organization and their events. And so this mission-centric approach is a really great example of how they focus on telling the stories of impact in a way that focuses on their mission. And so rolling off of that, people give to support success and not to underwrite failure, which is a pretty important thing to remember. So if you're sending out an appeal, if you send the language, we really need your support because we're running out of money and we need to support X, Y, and Z, that doesn't quite work as well as, hey, we have done X, Y, Z, and this is who has benefited, and this is how we're succeeding. People respond to positive messages and feeling good, and they respond more to success than they do failure. In any sort of communications, I think it's really important to avoid this sort of guilt messaging of, we really need your help because we're really not doing well, or you're going to spend this on a coffee anyways, or we're failing and we need you. Those aren't the most compelling and powerful messages. So when you're sending out appeals, you want to avoid this negative language and always, always, always try to focus on your success and your impact and telling people what you're doing right and how they can join you in that. And so while you also want to be telling stories of success, you also want to continue to be optimistic and enthusiastic. This is one of the biggest points in fundraising is you have to be your own biggest cheerleader and rally those around you to be cheerleaders as well. People respond to enthusiasm, and enthusiasm is contagious. And this is something that I have seen over and over again in peer-to-peer fundraisers that I've worked with. The people organizing fundraisers that are the most enthusiastic always raise the most money. And so optimism really comes from belief. When you're asking for a gift, you think negatively, like, well, why would they give? Or they have other charities they love, or I don't really know them that well, and they may not have that much money. That kind of negative or pessimistic thinking, while important and does have value, and you do want to be thinking about these things, it's a little bit more fruitful to think, okay, well, why wouldn't they give? And this is a really important cause, and they seem interested in other organizations, and they seem interested in this. So, they generously give to other causes, so why not us? Why not give it a shot? So using that optimism and believing that your donors want to give is really, really crucial, because if you believe that your donors want to give, your questions will focus on how much and for what purpose, as opposed to if you are thinking differently, you're already thinking negatively and like, they probably won't give. So how you believe in yourself and your organization, that impacts your actions and your words, and your attitude really does become a self-fulfilling prophecy when it comes to fundraising. So as the slide says, you always want to be optimistic, enthusiastic, and assume yes, because why not?
Thanks, Meg. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about relationships and trust, sort of leading off of what you've been sharing. So cultivating before you solicit. I talked about this a little bit before when I said that the strength of the relationship you have with the person you're asking can sort of help you determine how much support you can ask for and how much support you can expect. Building relationships and trust means making sure you're connected to the people that you're asking throughout the year, not just at the time that you're asking for a gift. If you haven't spoken to someone in a long time, it's probably not the time to ask them for a gift. We'll go into this tip a little bit later in the presentation, but if you continue to build your relationships throughout the year and steward your donors as soon as they make a gift, 2 months after they make a gift, 5 months after they make a gift, and a year after they make a gift, you won't have this problem come time to ask them for their support again. Diving in a little deeper to trust and relationships, using your resources wisely is a critically important tip. So knowing your fundraising goals, we've already talked about that, that's really important. But having a budget and knowing how you will use those specific resources is key. I'm not saying publish your budget for your donors, but some people will really want to know how much of their gift is going to directly support the cause that you're talking about, how much of it might be used for fundraising or something else. you should have that information for when someone asks for it, and you're ethically obligated to be transparent about the way that you're using funds. When you're thinking about your resources, I'd also encourage you to expand this beyond financial resources. Think about human capital resources and what is going to get you the sort of most bang for your time, not buck in this case. So when you're developing a list of prospects, people you want to ask to support your fundraising campaign, some of them might be really good. You know, they'll respond, they'll give you a gift. Excellent. Now, if you have someone on your list who, say, has a really large social media following, but maybe they're not as financially well-to-do, or you just think that you might get more traction if you ask them to help you raise awareness about your fundraiser, that might be much more worthwhile than asking them for a gift or asking them for a large gift. Maybe you ask them to make a small gift and then to help you spread the message about the good work that you're doing. So in that way, you're thinking about all the people who are going to support your efforts and breaking up who would be wisest to ask for a gift, who would be wisest to ask for some other kind of support. And then there might be people that you need some other kind of capacity support from. Maybe it's someone who's really good at setting up a fundraising website and you're not so good with that. You need those types of people behind you as well. So I want to talk about number 12 now. Be a good manager, keeping impeccable records and using them. I'll give an example. When I was graduating from my master's program, I gave a really big gift for me, a really big gift to the institution. I had such a great experience and I wanted to support future students who were going to go through the program that I was. So I gave this great gift the day after graduation. I felt fantastic about it. And I didn't hear a single thing from anyone. I didn't get a thank you. I didn't get any kind of acknowledgement, even from the people I was really close to in the development office, who I thought, surely they know me. I just gave a huge gift. They'll say something. No one said thank you at all. And now that I've been working with a big institution, I think this is more an issue of records and how information is accessed, not necessarily that they saw my gift and didn't say thank you. So I understand that now, but knowing how that affected me as a donor, that's a really dangerous thing. When you get someone to support your cause and then they don't feel appreciated or they don't feel like you followed up with them in any way, they're not going to give again. In terms of keeping impeccable records, just another extension on that example, every year I get a sort of automated solicitation in the mail from my alma mater. And they, sometimes it says your last gift was $216. And sometimes it says your last gift was $520. None of these are the right number, and I don't know where the number came from. And it just makes me think that they're a little bit disorganized on the development front. So that's an example of why it's so important to keep records that are accurate and to use them. If you ever need to reach back out to someone and say, your last gift was X, would you consider giving this? You want to make sure that your numbers are correct.
Thanks, Sarah. So moving off of that same point of making sure that you say thank you, and most importantly, thank you appropriately, I want to dive a little bit deeper in why your thank you is so important. So building rapport with donors is especially crucial because they want to feel like they belong and are part of the success that you're building. And this really begins, the first step towards this is a thoughtful thank you. It welcomes them into your cause and circle. And so if a donor feels as though that they're part of your organization, they're really contributing to your success, they're much more likely to give to you than to an organization that they haven't really heard from, they don't know where their money went. They're not going to be so compelled to continue giving. So your thank you should be thoughtful, timely, and appropriate to whomever gave. Like Sarah said, you don't just want to text a donor thanks if they gave you $500 or more. Maybe you'll send an email, a handwritten note. You could even follow up with a phone call. Fundraising, and I have said this over and over and over again, and I tell this to everyone that gets into fundraising, that fundraising is all about relationship building. And as in any relationships that you build, gratitude and acknowledgement is a really powerful foundation for that. So a student group that's done this particularly well is Camp Chasm. And it's an organization on campus that, and Sarah, you can actually move to the next slide. It's an organization on campus that provides a free camp experience to children who have a family member that was impacted by cancer. So Camp Chasm, we gave a mini grant to. So we gave the organization a sum of money to kickstart some of their efforts. And within 48 hours, we received a picture of this kid, similar to this one. This is the exact child, but a smiling, happy, waving kid, and a testimonial on their camp experience with a thank you that stated, "This was your gift. Thank you so much. This is what this gift is going to do. And this is the kind of kid that is impacted." So while it came timely, it was appropriate, it acknowledged what we gave, and it also was a picture that was powerful and evoked happy emotions. And we continue to get updates from Camp Chasm. So we continue to get updates on camp as they move forward. And it's a really powerful example of a student group using effective fundraising, being really genuine and thoughtful in their thank yous, and connecting us, who were the donors in this case, to their cause, to their mission, and keeping them looped in the story. And now I personally feel if I get a thank you of, I helped this kid, Sam or Bobby, that is going to connect me to the cause in a deeper way and really acknowledge the great work that they're doing.
Meg, if you don't mind, I might add another example.
Of course.
Not everyone has cute kids necessarily to show.
True.
Use in their thank yous, depending on what the cause is. Some organizations are a little bit tougher of a sell, let's say, like maybe they focus on advocacy or research or something like that. And it is a little bit harder sometimes to raise money for those organizations if you're not thinking creatively about how to share the impact and how to say thanks. I got a call from an unknown number a number of years ago, and I usually don't answer those, but I answered this time. And the person said, "Hi, is this Sarah?" And I said, "Yes," skeptically. And he said, "Hi, this is Mark from XYZ organization. I just wanted to say thanks for your recent gift." I was so surprised because it wasn't a major gift. It wasn't a gift that I thought might, deserve a phone call, thank you. But he was just a volunteer calling to say thanks. That was it. It was a 30-second conversation, but it was so out of the ordinary for the way people say thank you to donors that I always remembered it. So you can think creatively about different ways to show your appreciation and really connect with people and get them to understand that your gift, whatever size it was, made a difference.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Sarah. And so in that same vein, making connections is so important in fundraising and really what it's about. And I've said it before, but fundraising, again, it's all about relationship building. And it's not just that initial thank you and that initial ask. It's about keeping relationships and maintaining those. So like I said before, people are more likely to give if they feel as though they're part of something. That community building is crucial. As opposed to giving a few dollars and then forgetting about your organization or having them give a few dollars and then you forget about them. When building a donor base, it is really important that you keep them updated on the organization's process, that you check in with them, and maybe even find out what they're particularly passionate about so you can send opportunities their way. So if it is kind of a harder to reach organization that works on research, as Sarah said, there's a project that they're really interested in or seem to be inclined to learn more about, maybe you send them updates on how that's going. Or you say, "Hey, I know you were really interested in this. We have this event coming up." Those little sort of individual taps on people are really important, and they show that you care and they show that you're trying to make connection. And as in any relationship in life, the relationships that you build in fundraising require some TLC and some care in order to help them grow. So you can do that by, like I said, keeping them updated, finding out what they're passionate about and looping them in accordingly. In the past, it's been really fun to send holiday cards or birthday cards recognizing them. Birthday cards are a little tricky because you might not know their actual birthday, but holiday cards are an easy example. Or if there's, a day that really means a lot to your organization, sending them some sort of card and acknowledging them and thanking them for their help in the past year is a really great way to keep in touch. So making sure that you're intentionally building community of donors rather than forgetting them once they give money is important. And it's helpful if you think about them more as partners, right? They're helping you. They're building your cause with you. They're partners in this. So make sure you don't not only make relationships, but keep them. And then one of my favorite points of fundraising, and one that's really crucial, is to step back and enjoy your work and make sure that you find a place for fun in fundraising. It's corny, but it is, fun is in the word. So making sure that we don't forget about that. And so, like anything in life, you're most successful if you're happy and having fun while doing it. So this translates into fundraising really in a lot of ways. Any successful fundraising campaign that I've run, whether I was a student in school or as a professional, they work best when they're fun. And this trickles down from the organization. If you can't convince a friend to do it with you, what makes you think strangers will want to give? If you love your job, if you're having fun doing it, if you're telling great stories, it will be contagious to your donors. And it also makes it a lot easier for you. So when I talk about fundraising, and a lot of friends will say, oh, I hate asking people for money, or I'm really just not good at this. This is uncomfortable. I hate fundraising. I always like to tell them that fundraising is more about relationship building and sharing something that you're passionate about. It's not just a cold transaction and asking someone for money. It's you advocating for something and asking them to partner with you and sharing, hey, I love this and I'm really passionate about it. And if you're passionate about this too, there are ways you can help. If you frame your thinking like that, you don't think of it as a cold transaction of, okay, I need X amount of dollars from X amount of people. Instead, if you think about advocating for something that you're passionate about and getting people on board with this, it's a little bit different, and it does make your work a little bit more fun. And so if you move to the next slide, Sarah, one example of how we did this with the Do Good Institute is every year there's a giving day that the University of Maryland hosts, and it's a 24-hour giving campaign where you have 24 hours to rally donors. And so what we decided to do is to make it fun. So as you can see, we're all crowded in front. If you zoom that picture out, you could see an entire huge wall of whiteboard behind us that had best donor quotes. We had boards that said, the top donor, who got the quickest donor, who had the, most surprising donor. We had a competition, we had prizes. We even brought in a cute new little puppy, and we had donor dashboards that we had a lot of fun with and interacted with. And we had a spinning wheel that you could spin and do different dances. And although it seems simple, it really was just a way to get our whole team together, have lunch together, and make sure that we were having fun and, had a little bit of a competition involved, which engaged our team more so than I think they would have been otherwise. It made sure people were smiling and weren't awkwardly asking for gifts on their own. We could bounce ideas off of each other, and everybody was in it together, which made it a more fun and enjoyable environment. And more people gave. We had higher success in the actual money that was collected, and we also just had more team members involved, which in my opinion is always a more fun time. So that's just a quick example of how our team actually put these words into practice. All right. And so in getting started, there are a few different, there are millions of different resources out there, but some of my favorites are social media. So you can use places like Instagram or Facebook if you find that your donors are really active on social media. And this is probably for younger generations more so, but really meet people where they are. If they're going to be scrolling on Facebook already, or they're going to be going through Instagram stories, you might as well try and catch them while they're there. And catch them might not be the right analogy, but really introducing your cause on platforms where people already are and where you already are active. So I really emphasize to anyone that's fundraising to really utilize your social media channels, because someone that you may not have spoken to, or someone that you may not be super close with, or people that are you're very, very close with, but you haven't had a chance to get in touch with them personally, might be like, oh, I saw you posted that on Facebook. And that happens to me all the time, or someone's like, oh, I saw you were doing that campaign. How'd it go? Or someone that really surprises me that I didn't think was going to donate actually did because they saw me post on Facebook or Instagram. And so I would just say, make sure that you're not counting those out when you are doing fundraising, because it can be a really valuable tool if your audiences are active on those platforms already. And then Sarah will take some time to talk about other valuable resources outside of social media.
Thanks, Meg. And as she said, there are tons of valuable resources, but I wanted to talk specifically about two crowdfunding sites that are kind of a gold standard for crowdfunding. Now, these sites are a little bit different, and I'll talk about the differences between them. But you've probably heard of sites. If you haven't heard of these, you've heard of like GoFundMe and Kickstarter and all of those. Every site is different in terms of the type of fundraiser you're doing, the fees they charge, the capabilities of their site. So depending on the needs you have for your fundraiser and the way you want to do it, I recommend looking at several options before picking one and getting started. So Global Giving and Classy. Both of these, one of the really nice things about these is that they both have tools and resources for people using their site. So to our point before about people give to support success, not to underwrite failure, these websites know and acknowledge that a successful fundraiser on their website is better for their business overall. So essentially, they want to help you succeed because it makes them look good too. Global Giving is really a standard of excellence for international nonprofits. They offer matching opportunities throughout the year. They have an option to allow donors to cover their admin expenses of the donation, which can be, really important and really add up for nonprofits. And they have a really nice resource section and even like a boot camp. I forget exactly what it's called, but for those organizations who are doing sort of sophisticated or large-scale fundraising campaigns, they offer a boot camp where they really work with you closely to ensure that your fundraiser is a success. Classy is one that is super sleek and allows for a peer-to-peer option, which is really nice. So Students Helping Honduras use this frequently. You can, with a group of like-minded students, all raise funds for the same cause, but each have your own sort of sub-giving page within that, so you can keep track of what everyone is individually raising. It's also nice for sort of fun sense of competition, or because everyone might have a different goal. Someone might want to raise, X amount of dollars, while someone else wants to get this number of donors. So that helps you sort of break it up and individualize the fundraising campaign a little bit for everyone who's participating. The other nice thing about Classy is that it has a recurring gift option. You never know who will select that. And if the funds you're raising are for a cause that sort of lends itself well to a monthly gift, that's a nice option to have. I should mention that no crowdfunding site is free. They all charge admin fees, mostly for credit card processing and sometimes an additional admin fee on top of that for the donation. And there's a sliding scale in terms of which ones are most expensive, and a lot offer discounts for established nonprofits. Classy is one that requires a sort of subscription fee monthly. So cost is something that you want to take a look at when you're evaluating your different crowdfunding options. One thing I wanted to mention that might be relevant for student groups is some of you will be raising funds for a brand new cause, something that doesn't have an established nonprofit behind it. Some of you will be working through a student group, and maybe there's a fiscal sponsor that you're working with. That's someone that's an established nonprofit that sort of represents you and accepts funds on your behalf. And then they disperse those funds to you or your program, sometimes for a fee, sometimes because it's very mission aligned with what they do. And then others are raising money for an established nonprofit, and then you want to work with them directly to set them up as the recipient on the crowdfunding site. So just think about that. How can you set yourself up to accept legally donations? Because otherwise you might just be asking people for support, and it's not necessarily a donation if there isn't a tax exemption attached to it because you're working with an established nonprofit. So that's just something to consider.
Thanks, Sarah. And I also quickly want to add my favorite thing about Classy is actually their blog. If you head over, their blog is totally free to access, and they have tons and tons of articles on, best ways to say thank you, or these are the best online fundraising campaigns, or here's how we can utilize social media for donors. So if you're not interested in kind of like taking that leap to take a look at their peer-to-peer platforms and actually raising money through Classy, I definitely recommend you, at the very least, going to check out their blog. All right, you can move ahead. So we would love to see you put all of this into action. And so a quick activity that you can use kind of at the conclusion of this presentation is using your project or your cause in particular, pick 2 fundraising principles and lay out some initial strategies and how you might use those, and how you could either, if you're using it already, how you could, perfect that art and how you can dive deeper, or if there's a principle that, oh, wow, I've never actually thought about that, or I've never shared that with my team, or, picking 2 fundraising principles and laying out some initial strategies can be helpful in really starting to build out your fundraising strategy. And as an overview, you can see all of the fundraising principles on this next slide. So when you're going through to do this activity, you can just switch to the next slide. And here are all 15 that Sarah and I went through today. Each of them unique and important in their own right. And so I would really encourage you to go through these 15, maybe pick a few that speak to you most and apply those in a way that makes sense for your organization, and with some really smart goals and some steps moving forward in those.
So I think that's it from us. Meg, thanks so much for joining me for this presentation. If you want to follow up with either of us, you have questions about fundraising, or you just want to chat about it, feel free to email either of us, and we'll make ourselves available. Thank you so much, and good luck.
Thanks, guys.